Hi, my name is Joseph Weeks. I'm a student at Michigan State University and I'm making this video for my final project in my ISS 335 class. Well, the object of this video is I'm going to be explaining and evaluating a case in which sexual research was used to back up the claims being made. And I will evaluate both the validity of the research itself and its value in actually backing up the claims that are being made in the article that I am discussing today. Okay, this article comes from Penn State University and is entitled Strong Evidence for Double Standards Among Adolescents Regarding Sex. As the title would suggest, this article makes claims that there is a big difference in the way that male adolescents and female adolescents are treated upon having sex. For males, they may be socially rewarded and receive high praises from their peers who view having sex as an accomplishment. For females, it is very much the opposite. A female may be ridiculed and distanced from their peers who view the female as having made bad choices and being unfavorable upon having sex. Some of the statistics from this article are as follows. Some basic information on this study is as follows. The study was conducted by a team which was led by Dr. Derek Krieger, a professor at Penn State University. What the team did was have close to 1,000 students from rural Pennsylvania and Iowa take a self-conducted survey twice a year during school hours. The survey was used to detail the students' sexual histories and also gain information on who were the students' closest friends. The team specifically followed one group of students from 6th to 9th grade. Upon reviewing these students' surveys, the team came to the conclusion that they eventually reported. It is also important to note that these students were not randomly chosen. They were a part of a program called Project Prosper, which I will get into more later on in the video. There are several things to consider when evaluating a scientific study such as this one. These most importantly include who conducted it, how was it conducted, what were the test subjects like, what was the range of number of people, where was it conducted, what conditions were it conducted in, who funded the project, what was the purpose of the project. All these things can be very important in evaluating a study, and I will go into each one in detail. The first area that I will be discussing during my attempt to evaluate the validity of this study is how was it conducted. As I mentioned earlier, students were asked to fill out a survey twice a year during school hours, which would detail their sexual histories and give information on who were their closest friends. A survey is not always the best way to gather data in a scientific study. Often, people filling out the survey will have qualms about who will see what they put down. In their minds, it is possible that somebody could misplace these surveys, and a complete stranger could end up seeing their results. Due to this, they are likely to put down answers that they feel are safe and non-embarrassing. even though these answers may not be truthful. Instances like this will highly skew the data. How is a researcher supposed to get truthful data if people will not answer truthfully? This idea gets heightened even more in this study due to the fact that the surveys were filled out during school hours. A student filling out this survey may be worried that one of their friends or fellow peers may be peeking over their shoulder somehow and seeing what they put down. They do not want to be ridiculed by their peer group and therefore are even more likely to put down a safe answer. There are several things that the researchers of this study could have done differently to increase the chances of their results being truthful and honest. The first thing that they could do, if they wanted to stay with the idea of a survey, would be having these students fill out the surveys at home or in a lab of some sort. If the students were not around their peers while filling this out, they would be less likely to think that their peers would find out what they are saying and would therefore give more truthful answers. Something that would be even more likely to yield truthful answers and therefore give better data would be having the research be gathered by face-to-face interviews. Earlier in this class, we studied Alfred Kinsey and found out that Kinsey gave all of his participants face-to-face interviews, and that was how the data was gathered. He devised several ways to make the interviewers feel comfortable and make them feel that he was sympathetic to their cause, needing them to open up to him and to give the deepest and most truthful answers that they could. If the study of these adolescents was to take a similar route, I believe that they would get the most truthful answers that they could get. If they were to look to Kinsey and follow his methods of interviewing and data gathering, I believe that this study would be much more successful. So unfortunately, the validity of this study does take a very big drop due to the methods conducted and the fact that these methods may have very well led to unhonest answers by participants. The next area that I'm going to discuss is the where of the study. I've already touched on this in the last section of the video in regards to the fact of where was the actual study conducted. As I said, the idea that the data gathering portion of the study was conducted in a school setting decreased the validity of the study due to the fact that students are going to be less likely to be truthful in their answers in a school setting. The other major component of the where is what geographical regions were covered in the study and how does that affect the data. They did a good job here in this study by taking data from two separate states. As I said earlier, rural Pennsylvania and rural Iowa were the settings and backdrop for the study. They didn't confine it all to one area, which is good. However, they did not do a good job of getting a diverse types of communities. Both of these areas are rural. The settings and relationships surrounding these people are going to be similar based on the fact that they are both in rural settings. If they wanted to be more effective, they should have taken one rural community, one more urban community, some small cities, bigger cities, poor people, rich people. making sure that they covered all types of social standings, economic standings, and living standards based on geographical locations. It is not good to take data all from one type of area. It's only going to be giving you research from one area of the population. The study should really say there are double standards between male and female adolescents regarding sex in rural areas. If they were to expand on the diverse type of areas, this would have helped the validity of this study very much. But unfortunately they didn't. And therefore, the small population type sample of this study encourages the idea that the where of the study decreases the overall validity. The third area that I will be evaluating is the who of the study. This itself also contains multiple facets. These are who was being studied, who conducted the study, and who funded the study. I will discuss each one of these in length for the next portions of this video. Okay, the first area of who that I will be discussing is who was being studied. Within this area, I will also incorporate the idea of when, as in how long they were being studied, and the number of people that were being studied. As a refresher, the subjects of this study were adolescents that were being studied from 6th to 9th grade. Obviously, if you want to do a study on double standards between adolescents who are male and female, the most logical and smart people to have be your subjects are adolescents themselves. So this is something that the study got right. It is a no-brainer, but they nonetheless did it correctly. As far as the when aspect of who these people are, they allowed 3 years and let these people develop and change into the new people that they became over these 3 years. There's a big difference from somebody in 6th grade and somebody who's in 9th grade and starting high school. As people age, they become more aware of sex and more interested in it. And also, friends change. So the friend gathering aspect of the survey is well served by this aspect. I think that they did a good job here in covering a good range of time for the people that they were studying. As always, they could have went farther and studied all of high school and gotten even better results, had an even more valid study, but they nonetheless did a good job by covering multiple years and capturing a good snapshot of these people as they change from teenagers and in 6th grade and develop into their aspects of young adults as they start high school. As far as the number of people, they studied close to 1,000 people. That's not a terrible sample size. If only 10 or 100 people were being studied, it would be hard to say that a good sample size was given and that this data reflected a large amount of people. The more people that are studied, the more truthful and apparent this data is. As size increases, the number of people that this study could apply to also increases. I would say that it would be better to do more than 1,000 people. 2,000, 3,000, 100,000 people? The more people they have, it would only increase the different kinds of people that they would encounter in the study. They would get more black people, more white people, more people of all different kinds of colors, creeds, religions, everything. And it would be more definite for them to say this study can apply to everybody in the world. So, in this first aspect of WHO, they didn't do as great a job as they could. But I would argue that they did enough to increase the validity of this study and make it, from this first aspect of WHO at least, a successful one. Next, I will be discussing who are the ones that conducted this study. It is important to evaluate the people conducting the study because they are the ones that come up with the study, carry out all the steps of the study, and eventually publish the results. Several things could come up that could be issues and skew the data of a study. First off, what type of biases do these researchers carry in with them to the research themselves? How do these biases affect the ultimate outcome? Also, are these people actually qualified to be conducting this research? Do they have the right education, specializations, knowledge as required to interpret this data correctly and to conduct the data in the first place? If any one of these single things is not true for all of the researchers that are participating in a study, it could vastly throw off the study itself and vastly decrease its validity. As I mentioned earlier, Dr. Derek Krieger is the leader on this team of researchers. Dr. Krieger is a PhD in sociology from the University of Washington and is now a professor at Penn State University, where he teaches classes specializing in sociology, criminology, and peer groups. It is important to note that Krieger has taken part in studies of peer groups because this study itself is heavily vested in peer groups, since it studies the effects that sex has on adolescents and their peer groups. This specialization gives them an extra amount of expertise and ability to recognize the situations that are going on and makes them extra qualified to lead this study. As for the rest of the researchers, they're all professors with PhDs and all are around in the fields such as sociology and child development. Since sociology deals with the way that people have effects on each other, that makes them very qualified to deal with the study that includes the way that people's effects are affecting each other. Since the study is on adolescents, the professors that have specialties in child development will be equally qualified to diagnose the problems of these adolescents specifically, as they have studied children for many parts of their lives. These scientists and researchers lead a heavy dose of validity to this study that may have otherwise been lacking in other parts of the study. I believe that they have the knowledge and skills to properly analyze the data, and hopefully come to a conclusion that is based in science and fact and is completely valid. The final aspect of who that I will be discussing is who funded the project. Founders are very important for a study because they could have ulterior motives that affect the study. They could have say on what the purpose of the study is. They could have saying on how things are conducted, or they could pull back their funds, changing the way that things are conducted within the study. They may have final say on how the results are published. All these things could change the study. As we learned earlier in the class, during the 19th and 20th century, sex research was changed from self-funded, corporation or foundation funded. This made it so that researchers could not just do research for the sake of research like they could when they were self-funded. They had to have a specific goal in mind that either benefited the corporation or whoever was funding this, or for the common good of the society overall. These types of things can still affect researchers in modern times. The stress of trying to get the specific result that they needed could put unwanted pressure on the researcher and make them change the way they conduct things, or change how they publish the results, change the results that they ultimately say they have, even though it's not what they want. It's what they need to do to keep their funding and continue their research. Next, I will put up the names of the foundations that funded this project, and afterwards I will talk about each one in detail. The William T. Grant Foundation is a foundation which serves on the basis of trying to figure out how adolescents develop and thrive in a society. They give out grants based on criteria of, does this study fill that need for finding better understanding of that? Does the research help adolescents out and help everyone as a whole figure out ways to continue to make their lives better and easier? From that idea, I would not think that this foundation would have any ulterior motives other than trying to figure out how sex and double standards affects children, and how maybe they can help to stop those double standards from affecting children in a negative way. They do not, in my eyes, have any negative impact on the study through their support of it. I'm grouping together the National Institute on Drug Abuse and the National Institutes of Health because both are so similar. Both of them are government funded and are created with the sole purpose of helping the human population. Because of this, I feel that neither one is untrustworthy or will have any ulterior motives that will change the purpose of the study or the way that it is conducted or published. Therefore, neither one of these two institutes are a poor source of funding and do not decrease the validity of the study. The final funder comes from Penn State themselves and their Population Research Institute. This institute is based solely for research purposes, for the sake of research itself. This fact that they are only interested in the research, have no certain purpose other than trying to find out new and interesting things about populations, I feel that they would not pressure the team of researchers in any way to produce a certain result or study a specific thing other than what the researchers want to research themselves. This coupled with the fact that they specialize in populations, which ties to the theme of this particular study due to the fact that it focuses on a particular population, adolescents. I feel that this is a great funding resource that does not tarnish the validity of this study at all. It is very wise and good for them to approach this institute and use their funds to help further the research. One final thing that is important to mention in the WHO section of this video is the fact that, as I mentioned earlier, this study is a part of the PROSPER project. What that is a collaborative effort between Penn State University and the University of Iowa, and what they do is they support public school communities in Pennsylvania and in Iowa. This includes making sure that the students have everything they need to live healthy and successful young lives. They conduct their own research, give support to other research areas, and do anything they can to make sure that the kids have everything. Now, this is a good foundation to also have included as part of the study and putting the study on, since their sole purpose is protecting the well-being, safety, and healthiness of these young kids, and it's focused specifically on these communities that are being studied. So their focus is mainly on that and does not shift between different types of communities outside of what they're trying to focus on. For those reasons, I would say that the inclusion of the PROSPER project in this study is something that helps instead of hinders the validity of this study. Okay, so a final recap for the whole very large encompassing area of the WHO of this study. As far as the participants of the study, the researchers picked people that were ideally suited for the research they were doing by getting the right age range and the right conditions for what they live in. They also picked a sizable amount of people, which will allow them to cover more bases than if they had a small sample, such as 100 people instead of 1,000, or close to 1,000 that they do have. Comes to the people doing the research, all of the researchers involved have the right kinds of skills, knowledge, and specialties that are needed to analyze the data and to conduct the data itself and reach a smart, fact-based, and relevant conclusion. As far as the people funding this and its involvement with the PROSPER project, I would say that none of the corporations or foundations that are funding this have any ulterior motives that would derail this study. Same thing goes for the PROSPER project. Their involvement only helps because they are somebody who is sympathetic and interested in the cause of helping these young children that are being studied in this particular study. That is it for the WHO section of this video. Once again, the WHO section increases greatly the validity of this study. Now we are on to the why in our evaluation of this study. What were the ultimate motivations and purpose behind the conception of this study in the first place? This is important because if intentions are not pure, Data can either be skewed or made up. Participants of the study can be mistreated. Ultimately, fake results could even be produced. Earlier in this class, we have talked about the fact that Dr. John Money did not necessarily have the purest of intentions in his study of Brenda, Larry became David, and his theory that any person can be raised as any gender. He solely had the purpose of trying to prove his theory right, did anything possible, and did not care even if the results proved differently. He would publish that he was correct. Things like this happening totally destroy the credibility of a study. Luckily, all signs point to the pureness of the intentions of this study. All the researchers involved have backgrounds in areas that prove that they just wanted to do the research, and all of the funders have backgrounds and mission statements that prove that they just want to help these kids. All anybody wanted to do was find the truth and get to the bottom of this, and hopefully make these kids all over have better and more well understood lives. These pure intentions ultimately increase the validity of this study and show that no harmful intentions changed this study for the worse. The analyzation of the study leads to one final debate about the study itself. Is it ultimately valid or invalid? Unfortunately, I would argue towards the side of invalid. Even though the studiers did a good job of finding participants that could give the right information, the people conducting the study themselves had the right knowledge to conduct the study. All financiers had no ulterior motives, and large enough sample size and long enough period of time was given for this study, and the initial intentions behind the study were pure. There were too many errors in the data gathering methods that I cannot ignore. First off, the researchers should not have used the study and should have gone with face-to-face interviews to try and gather the data. People will lie on surveys to avoid embarrassment. It was also a mistake to do the surveys during school hours, where the students were even more likely to lie about their experiences in order to avoid embarrassment by their peers. The other major flaw is the locations in which they made the surveys take place. They only used rural areas and communities to conduct these surveys in. They should have done one urban, one rural, something in between, and taken into action many different cultures and communities. By only having data from one specific type of community, the full range of every type of person in the world is not going to be covered, and that severely undercuts the scientists' ability to say, yes, the study applies to most people. It is unfortunate that this one mistake and flaw in the overall process derailed the whole study, but the fact is, if the correct data is not given, then the evaluation and conclusions drawn from the data and ultimate publishing of the data is all thrown off. Since the data is so close to the beginning of the study, it affects so much of the study and everything that comes after it. Therefore, I view the study as invalid because the data itself is invalid. Now that we have spent time evaluating the study itself, it is time to decide if this study is applicable to the article and the claims that it is making. In other words, do the purpose and results of the study align and back up the claims of this article? Well, since the purpose of this study was to figure out, is there a double standard between male and female adolescents when it comes to sex, and the claim of the article is that there is a double standard, then those two align perfectly. The study is answering the question that the article is claiming it has the answer to. Are the results also applicable? Well, yes, they are. The results found that there is a double standard, and the article is claiming that there is a double standard. Therefore, just based on what the results say and what the study was, it is a reliable and perfect study to back up these claims that are being made. That is not including whether the study itself is viable in its own right. Just does the study and its findings, based on purely content, back up the claims that the article is making? Once again, that answer is yes. The final thing that I'm going to discuss in this video is, can somebody decide that these claims in this article are ultimately true solely based on this study? The two things that are used to determine if they can decide that these claims are true are, is the study applicable to the claims, and is the study itself valid? On one hand, the study itself is applicable to the claims being made, and the results themselves do back up the claim. However, I feel that the invalidity of the study itself makes the claims lose all credibility just based on the study itself. The data gathering was insufficient and led to insufficient results. Therefore, those results cannot be used to back up the claims being made in this article. Ultimately, the claims cannot be 100% believed. Thank you for watching this video and taking the time to listen to what I have to say. I hope that you learned something from watching. Have a good day.